It's not the best choice. It's Spacer's choice.
Alright, what is up you guys? Welcome back to another episode, and today we're gonna be talking about some news coming from Obsidian, the developers behind Fallout New Vegas, arguably the best Fallout game in the history of Fallout games. So it seems like Obsidian as a company and Tim Kaine, the OG developer for the first Fallout game, this guy knows how to make RPGs. They have joined forces to create what seems like a spiritual successor to Fallout New Vegas. And man, after the release of Fallout 76, this is a surprise, but a welcomed one. For sure. So I've been covering Fallout 76 since the beta started. I've been covering some of the controversies, I've been covering some of the news, and I've been focusing on a specific segment of the game, which is the building aspect. And I gotta say, on a personal level, I do like the game, but it's undeniable that there's a hole in the market, right? The audience expected more, the audience is asking for more, and Fallout 76 just didn't deliver on the promise of a good social RPG, right? Now let's put a pin on that and rewind for a second to 2017. Let's use like a time machine right here, right? So if you guys remember, in 2017, the controversy was all surrounding games as a service, right? So companies pushing multiplayer games that were online only and that were filled and riddled with microtransactions. And around that time, we had the Battlefront debacle, right? And at the time, Bethesda came out and said, we are so proud of making single-player story-driven games. And then they sort of like flipped the coin and released a multiplayer-only game, which was kind of like disingenuous from Bethesda, right? And on top of that, Fallout 76 is a game that doesn't know what it wants to be. It's a game that's trying to appeal to different audiences. It's trying to appeal to the PvP competitive players, and it's trying to appeal to the PvE story-driven players. And I've been reading a lot of reviews for Fallout 76, and it seems like a lot of the criticism that was directed towards the game shows that people wanted a single-player game. They wanted a traditional Fallout game, a story-driven RPG where the world reacts to your actions and you have a story, you have lore, you have environmental storytelling, all packaged in a single-player experience, and that's not what we got, right? So it seems like there's a space in the market for a game like that, and that's where Obsidian comes in. Obsidian Entertainment is one of the best RPG developers out there. They are responsible for some of the most iconic RPG games of all time. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, freaking Fallout New Vegas, South Park, The Stick of Truth, come on! These guys are a perfect fit for the Fallout 76 audience. So back in 2017, Tim Kaine, who joined Obsidian to work on Pillars of Eternity, had a talk where he basically revealed that Obsidian was working on a secret project.
Now I'm actually working on a new IP, which Fergus has told me I'm not allowed to talk about, but I've already told people if you loved Fallout, you're gonna love this game. This game has a lot of me in it, so it's got a lot of Fallout and Arcanum style and humor.
So obviously the internet decided to do some detective work. Everyone was trying to figure out what game they were working on, but nothing really came out of it. It was all under wraps until...
Well, did you like it? Of course there's more.
Last week, when Geoff Keighley decided to tease an announcement for an upcoming RPG by Obsidian and Private Division. If you guys are not aware, Private Division is a publishing section from Take-Two, which is the company behind BioShock and BioShock Infinite, two widely acclaimed action RPGs. And we know for a fact that this project is a new IP because it says world premiere Obsidian Entertainment live December 6th. So at this point you're probably asking yourself, alright, what do we know about this game and what makes you think that it's going to be a Fallout related thing, sort of like a Fallout spiritual successor, maybe something with a similar art style, maybe a similar story. So after the VGA announcement, Obsidian placed a countdown on their website. It says, stay stay tuned for a special message from Spacer's Choice. And if you look at the art style and sort of like the font, it looks very like retro futuristic. It's an art style that's very similar, very akin to the Fallout art style. From my perspective, it seems to have some Art Deco influences, very 80s, but not synthwave. You know, it's that very specific art style that you would expect from BioShock, that you would expect from Fallout, that you would expect from Prey. So if you couple this with the fact that it's gonna be an RPG, and then Tim Cook, the original Fallout creator, is working on it as well, and that Obsidian has experience with Fallout games, I think it's safe to assume that this is gonna be a Fallout RPG spiritual successor. Now, obviously, this is all speculation. We don't really know what's gonna happen. There are some rumors floating around hinting at the fact that they may be using the Unreal Engine 4, which would basically give fuel to this theory that it's gonna be a Fallout-inspired game in third person or maybe first person, who knows, something like that. But that's huge news in and of itself, because Obsidian does have a tendency to use isometric gameplay. So we're gonna have to wait and see whether or not it's gonna be more so like Pillars of Eternity, kind of like an isometric RPG, or if it's gonna be a third person or first person action RPG. We're gonna have to wait and see. What we do know, however, is that the thematic and the art style is very similar to Fallout 76. This announcement is not the only piece of art style that we have from them. We also have a prototype of a gun from Spacer's Choice, which seems to be a company in the game. There's also another company called Better Nature, so it seems like they're laying down the groundwork for this universe. Now, Tim Kaine also hinted at the possibility that the game would look kind of like Arcanum, which is in fact an isometric RPG. So even though I would love to see a first-person RPG, my bet is on an isometric Fallout-inspired game. We also have this sort of like jingle that's associated to the Spacer's Choice pistol.
It's not the best choice. It's Spacer's Choice.
Which, by the way, looks a lot like the 10mm pistol from Fallout 76. And this jingle sort of like sets the tone for the game as well, and it's very Fallout, dude. So just based on the advertisement, it seems honest, and it seems like this world is rich and ripe with stories and lore, right? Because they have all these different companies advertising in-game, like sort of like what you would expect from Voltic, right? Like in-game advertisement for a made-up company, something like that. For instance, we have this advertisement right here from Auntie Cleo's. So that's another company. So we have three companies already. We have Better Nature, we have Spacer's Choice, and we have Auntie Cleo's. So they might be different factions. They might be different companies that produce like items that you use in game, like stim packs or something like that. Maybe Spacer's Choice is a gun manufacturer, and Better Nature produces like health items, because if you see the advertisement, there's bread, they have an ointment, they have skin cream, so there's a lot of items there, and I think they're trying to make these as iconic as the stim pack and the Radaways and the Radix. So I think they're laying the groundwork for this universe here. Now, based on the Spacer's Choice logo, which is a spaceship, I think this is not gonna be a post-apocalyptic RPG like Fallout. I think they're taking inspiration from Fallout in terms of art style and maybe some gameplay elements, but I think this is gonna be set in space. It's gonna be a space game with an isometric view, Fallout art style, and traditional Obsidian RPG mechanics. That's my prediction right there. I don't know if it's gonna happen or not, but we're gonna have to wait until we have some news from the Game Awards, which is gonna be great. I really do love the Game Awards. Each year they get better and better, and I do think Geoff is doing a great service to the video games industry by sort of like honoring all of these developers who basically, in my opinion, are rock stars, really. I think a game with all of these features would be very successful with an audience that was left burned by a company that basically showed no respect for their consumers, a company that engaged in terrible business practices, that added microtransactions, that lied about the Power Armor Edition, that tried to buy influencers with canvas bags. A company that effectively engaged in false advertisement and it's being investigated by a law firm. A company that was highly regarded by their customers and then in one fell swoop ruined their brand, ruined their reputation, and now they're being compared to freaking EA, the worst company in gaming at this point. It is undeniable that the Fallout 76 audience is very dissatisfied with how things panned out, and I think a fresh company like Obsidian with a great track record would be welcomed by this community, and I hope they are successful. Anyway, boys, I think that's gonna be it for today. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, remember to leave a like, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, and I'll see you guys next time.